Good morning and welcome to Actifio Masterclass webinar series. Today we'll be covering hitting your RPO target. Before we get started, as well as what you'd like to see next, our next webinar will be Actifio Daily Administration in 10 minutes a day, and that will be on April the 11th. And we've also got our upcoming live remote Sky administration class on April 16th through the 20th. Today's presenters will be Paul Martel, our Education Services Manager, and me, David Fowler, Manager of Global Enablement. Take it away, Paul.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate that. Let me just switch over. Having a little technical issue, not sure why. There we go. That looks better. So yeah, we're going to talk about today hitting RPOs every time with Actifio's advanced features.
Okay, perhaps we should start with a little description of what the differences between an RTO and an RPO is. A lot of times you hear these phrases being used together and oftentimes incorrectly interchangeably.
That's a great question, Dave. Thanks. Because the two terms sound similar, you're right. Many people actually do confuse those terms. One of the first things to remember is that RPO and RTO can be different for different applications. So let's start with a little bit of a timeline here where we're performing backups at regular intervals of time, and then some sort of event takes place. The RPO, or recovery point objective, describes how far back in time we have to go to get an image from which you can perform a recovery. The RTO, or recovery time objective, is the goal for how quickly you need to have that application back and available. So here we see a pretty good graph of the two of those and how they relate. The key things to remember within this is that the RPO represents the amount of data loss. During that RPO time, we're going back to the last backup we had available, which means we have lost any data that has taken place during that time. An RTO represents the downtime before we get to the data restored and are able to pick up again with our business.
So really the key points here is that the RPO and RTO might actually be different for different apps. That the RPO represents how far back you have to go to find a recoverable image, and the RTO is how long it's going to take to retrieve that image to get us back up and running.
Yeah, that's right, Dave.
So are there any variables that you should consider when calculating what your RPO and RTO should be?
So the answer to that is a pretty simple yes. There are actually 5 common variables that can significantly impact your SLA compliance as far as RPO is concerned. First, network congestion. You know, there's other activities taking place on the network, and that can obviously slow down the data flow. You need to make sure that you can consistently provide the bandwidth that's used in your RPO sizing. Second, other running jobs. You know, if you intend to perform frequent mounting of virtual clones, or you expect to frequently have to restore data from deduped images, you need to take into account the I/O impact of those jobs. Recovery jobs such as mount and restore typically have the highest priority in the system, and they will take away resources from ongoing capture jobs. Third is higher than normal change rates. You know, that can occur as a result of user actions. You know, for example, if somebody decides to reindex a database or perform an ETL operation into the database, those are examples that can cause major changes at the block level within our system. You need to decide upfront how much of a change you want to be able to handle while still meeting your desired RPO. Fourth, loss of change block tracking. You know, sometimes change block tracking is lost, such as when an ESX server crashes. So while the Actifio appliance has mechanisms in place to deal with that and avoid a full ingest, by scanning the production data and rebuilding the changes, that takes longer than incremental captures do. You need to decide if you want to account for that in your sizing. And fifth, Change is not always distributed evenly. While you might size the system to meet your RPO for the average change rate, this could be easily violated, especially for large applications. If you only size for the average, you need to take into account that you'll get occasional violations based upon your SLA and how it is defined and measured.
Okay, Paul, so that was quite a bit to take in. So just to recap real quick, you're saying I need to account for the possibility that there could be other network traffic, there could be other running jobs, this app or host could have a higher than normal change rate, or if something's happened to our ESX or vSphere server, we may have lost our change block tracking. And the distribution of how all these changes are spread out could potentially affect my RPO.
That's correct.
So how do I go about setting this up so once I've figured out what I want for an RPO and RTO?
So Actifio provides for different types of replication protection. There's, first of all, dedup replication. Dedup backup replication is useful for long-term retention where the data needs to be stored off-site, but that the RTO is not high enough to warrant hydrating the information at that remote site into its snapshot pool. Dedup async replication, often referred to as DAR or simply just dedup async. That's useful for disaster recovery of applications that do not require a short RPO, but do require a short RTO. You can see how the terms are easy to confuse. StreamSnap is our disaster recovery for applications that require a shorter RPO. And one of its critical needs is that you must have a very good network connection between the sites. And on vault, snapshot to vault is for very long-term retention, and it's intended for periodic copies to be placed into the cloud. So looking deeper into each of these, dedup backup replication is efficient for long-term storage of captured and deduplicated data to a remote Actifio appliance. Data is replicated using that remote dedup policy. It's transmitted from the local Actifio appliance dedup pool to the dedup pool managed by the other Actifio appliance. The need for and the number of dedup DR copies to retain on the second appliance for long-term is driven by your retention requirements for the data. Now, dedup backup replication is incremental. Nice thing, it's globally deduplicated and compressed and encrypted in flight. So we actually use a proprietary deduplication-aware replication protocol, which is quite a mouthful. I'll say that again. A deduplication-aware replication protocol that enables the transmission of only the globally unique blocks. That minimizes the bandwidth required to move the data between the appliances. Dedup async replication allows you to keep a remote copy of an application's data up to date and ready to use in a failover scenario. Now, DAR is an Actifio proprietary form of replication where initially a full copy of the application data is replicated to a target snapshot pool on the second Actifio appliance, or when a VM is replicated to the data stores of an ESX server. Now, dedup async replication sends deduplicated and compressed data over the network, really at a fraction of the bandwidth required for traditional replication technologies. Once the dedup async job takes a snapshot, it dedups the data, replicates that deduped data to another Actifio appliance, and then rehydrates that data on that second appliance and updates the full copy so that we have the flexibility of an instant access recovery at the remote site. The key thing to remember with dedup async is that we do go through the dedup pool to dedup pool stage and then rehydrate at the other end. That ensures that we have a full up-to-date copy of the data readily and available at that second site. And because we're deduping it before we do all this, we actually require a lot less bandwidth than the next one I'm going to talk about, which is StreamSnap replication. Typically, you can achieve a recovery point objectives of 24 hours with 12 and 8-hour RPOs possible. StreamSnap facilitates the high availability by allowing you to keep a remote copy of the application storage and configuration up to date and ready for a failover scenario. When StreamSnap managed applications fail, you mount a failover image of the application from the remote site. When the problem's been resolved, you can restore the sync back image to the local site with the latest changes and then fail back the application to the production site. The great thing about this is that Snapshot replicates data snapshots to the remote appliance snapshot pool without any deduplication step. This allows us to provide an RPO as low as 1 hour. In OnVault, the appliance can replicate data to a cloud object storage vault. The vault pool is defined within our system by way of instant type access credentials and where there's the cloud to replicate the data. An Actifio vault is typically used for long-term retention and consists of file system and application data. Applications cannot run in an Actifio vault. We can combine a lot of these features together such that I can actually take and send information via StreamSnap or DAR or any of the other tools and simultaneously send it out to the cloud. I also have the ability to parallel stream it by sending information from the Snap pool directly to the cloud or from the remote Dedup pool into the cloud.
All right, Paul, that was quite a bit to take in. So basically, what this is going to break down to is we have 4 different types of replication. We have dedup backup. Now, this is where the information is deduplicated and stored in the dedup pool at the remote site. Next, we've got dedup async replication, or DAR. This is where the information is deduped, sent to the dedup pool at the remote site, and then rehydrated into its snapshot pool. Now for number 3, we've got StreamSnap. This is where the image gets sent from the local snapshot pool to the remote snapshot pool. And lastly, we have OnVault. And this is where we go from the local snapshot pool out to the cloud.
Exactly.
Now I know we covered this in the SLA webinar, but could you show us how to create SLAs for each of these methods?
So the nice thing is that with Release 8.0 of our product, Actifio provides you with 8 sample SLA templates. Now they're actually labeled Z sample 1 up to Z sample 8. This is so that they'll alphabetically sort at the bottom of the template list. And as we reviewed in the SLA webinar, you don't usually want to modify these default templates. They're there as examples for you, and the best option is to clone and create your own. So that will keep these Z samples on your list and down at the bottom. So let's take a quick look at each one of these. So the first one on the list is Z sample 1. And as you can see by the diagram, it only has local protection policies. In fact, it's a local daily policy with a 14-day retention period. Z sample 2, again, a local only daily policy, but this one has a 30-day retention and is designed specifically for database and logs. Z sample 3, again, as you can see, a local only daily policy, but it has a 6-month tiered protection retention scheme. Now, 4, as you can see already, we're getting into some remote. So these are the ones we really want to talk about, right? Z sample 4 is a remote dedup replication daily policy with a 30-day retention as shown. Z sample 5 adds DAR, remote dedup async replication. It's a daily policy with a 30-day retention period. Z sample 6, StreamSnap. So this is our remote StreamSnap replication. It's also a daily policy with a 30-day retention period. Number 7 is our vault. It's a monthly policy with a 3-year retention period. And lastly, Z-sample 8 is an 8-hour replication policy with a 14-day retention.
So of the 8 sample templates we've got, it's Z-sample 4 through 7 that cover remote replication?
Yes, 4 for long-term dedupe replication, 5 for dedupe async, 6 for StreamSnap, and 7 for on-vault.
Okay, so I guess my last question is, once I've gone and I've set all of this up, how do I actually measure if I'm successful?
So one of the main tools that I would suggest is Actifio's Report Manager. If you're not aware of it, the Actifio Report Manager is a web-based reporting service that enables you to generate various reports to analyze and understand your copy data management in your organization. It also was a previous webinar session. So if you need to, you can click on those and go and view the SLA and Report Manager ones, as well as the other sessions that we have there. Now, when you log into the Report Manager, you're first presented with the dashboard. Now, this provides different types of information through various widgets for all of the applications. The cool thing about all of this is that if you click on any one of these, it actually will take you into the more detailed report for that particular item. So as you can see, we have, first of all, the Backup Jobs widget. So the Backup Job widget will provide an aggregated job summary for all of the backup jobs that are running. The SLA Violation widget provides an aggregated group of charts that really is grouped by day for all of the appliances. And as you can see, we have total, snapshot, dedupe, and remote. Next is the Events widget. So down in the Events widget, we get a quick access to error and warning events grouped by day. And lastly, Utilization Top 5. So this is actually showing us the top 5 snapshot and dedupe pools, and also the top 5 vDisk consumption. The next one, the Daily Protection Status, is one of my favorite ones. This shows me whether any of the snapshot, dedupe, or remote jobs succeeded with the consistency date corresponding to the 24-hour period, beginning with the last snapshot window and up to the last 10 days. Basically, this is a chart of what was I supposed to do and what did I actually do against that. So where I see the green cells, that indicates successful jobs. A yellow cell is used when a job may yet succeed with the indicated consistency time. Now that might mean that simply the job is currently in progress, or that the time window is still open, we just haven't done it yet, or the snapshot may yet to be duplicated or replicated. And red indicate that we're never going to get a successful job within the time period. So that can happen if there's a job failure, a job canceled, if at any time during the period ended without a snapshot, so we can't therefore dedupe or replicate to the other appliance. So looking at this, you can see a few of those examples. There's a lot of green on this chart, as you can see, indicating that we expected to do a certain thing and it happened. But I also can see a few in the yellow bar. So if you notice the last column over here, I do have a few of them in the yellow. Now, what I see here is a couple of key things. So this one's telling me that I did not perform a dedupe on this snapshot. But it's yellow, indicating that I have a window, the job may already be running, or that the job still has time to complete. Red indicates something went wrong. Right? I wasn't able to do what I expected to do. And typically, you do have to watch out for some of these. A failure of a snapshot generally means I'm also going to have a failure of the dedupe and the remote, because there was no snapshot there for me to be able to use. So that's why it's pretty consistent grouping down here. The snapshot failed, so therefore, so didn't the dedupe and the remote. And that happened for a considerable amount of time. Maybe something was offline, whatever, and eventually it did come back online and we were able to perform the activities we scheduled. SLA Violation Summary is one of my favorite reports. I probably view this report more than any other. Those who have attended any of our training classes and heard me will be aware of me constantly saying I very seldom look at the failed job report. And the reason for that is pretty simple, and that's the SLA violation report tells me about all violations, and that includes fails as well as some of the others. If the schedule is off, the system's not run, whatever they are, we're going to get reports for the snapshot, the dedups, the directs, the remotes, OnVault, and StreamSnap for each of the appliances that we have. The charts, pie charts that you see are showing me the top 5 of those particular pieces of information. And each of these, by the little symbol given here, indicates that I can click on this and get more detail. Looking at trying to understand my recovery points and where I can do things, the recovery point by application is a critical report to understanding how or which RPOs are available. What can I do at any time? And what it tells me is when the last backup time for all of the applications for selected apps based on the major classes, such as snapshot, dedup, and rep. Okay, and as you can see in this chart, I have, this is one of our lab systems called Blackbeard the Pirate, and you can see that I have 3 different policies here, starting down at the bottom, S daily, my snapshot policy. And at the particular point in time that I run this report, it's telling me that the image in the snapshot pool is currently 22 hours old. The same is true for the image in my dedup pool. But I can also see that my 12-hour DAR image is only 5 hours old. So this is telling me, where do I want to go? What is my recovery point? How far back do I want to go in order to recover this image? So if I go back to the dedup or snapshot pools, I'm bringing back an image from 22 hours ago. But if I go to the DAR, I'm going to see that I can actually grab something from just 5 hours ago. Great report for RPO. In conjunction with that, Restorable Images is one that I also like. I find that this one's going to tell me all of the images that exist everywhere. What's in my snapshot? What log captures do I have? Dedups, OnVault. Wherever I have an image, it's going to show me those images and the retention period, how much it's aged out, all of the information that I need to know to say, okay, where are images that I need? And lastly, so this is actually from the report manager. This is just highlighting the SLA compliance reports. You should probably take a look at each of these and determine which reports work best for you. I've outlined a couple of them. As an example, the daily protection status, you might want to look at the daily protection table as opposed to, whichever one works best for you. Okay, so here's a listing of the current one. Whenever you go into the report manager, as you can see, if you go to the repository, it will list out the different report types. You can highlight any one of these and see all of the various reports. From there, you get the ability to filter, to set options, to save reports in the format you want them, schedule them for normal emailing on a regular basis, and so on.
So Paul, what you're saying is that the report manager is really one of the best sources for getting information pertaining to your RPOs. Now, specifically the reports listed, but you also called out the bottom 3 as being particularly important. All right, folks, we have reached the end of our topic for today.
Yeah, I mentioned the 2 webinars of the 6 or so that we've conducted recently, SLAs as well as Report Manager, about the training programs that we offer, anyone who's interested in this information. So all of our course offerings are available on our Actifio Now customer portal. If you have access to Actifio Now, you simply would log in there, click the Learn tab at the top of the page. That would bring you to the Learn page. Now from there, you would select the Actifio U logo. That icon will bring you to the Actifio U education page, and you'll see a listing of all of the course modules that are available as part of our e-learning content. In fact, if you click the little E button, you'll be able to watch a video of that material. But to the right of that, there actually is a section that talks about live instructor training, and that's what we're talking about. So we do have at least one course offered every month. It is typically run from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time currently, but we do occasionally run them on the West Coast as needed. So you can click on that, and then you would simply select the type of course you're looking for, a database operations course, or in the case, the one Dave mentioned earlier, the Sky Administration. That will show you all of the available dates for the classes. But the thing I'm going to ask is, if you'd like more detailed information about that, please send an email message to actifiou@actifio.com, and that way somebody can address that and make sure that you've got access to it and so on.
Hop on over to our YouTube page. That's Actifio Enablement Team over at YouTube. You actually don't need to understand anything about how any of this works. If you simply watch the video, click where I click, and follow my instructions on screen, and then you can apply everything you've learned today about RTOs, RPOs, SLAs, SLTs, SLPs, and the rest of the alphabet soup that we've covered in the last just about an hour.
So Dave, you mentioned the YouTube channel. That's where everybody can find all of these pre-recorded webinars as well, correct?
That's correct. Every webinar that we have done, in addition to some additional content, not related to the webinars that we just thought would be helpful, is all available and organized by playlist in the order that you should consume it on our YouTube channel at YouTube/C/Actifio Enablement Team.
Right. And again, I mentioned about the e-learning courses that we have available in Actifio now. You'll also find a copy of those webinars on that list there.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. That concludes our session for today.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another YouTube Tech Tip video. If you like the content you're seeing on this channel, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you will be alerted to any future content.